Hi there, this is Kate Richards from Leverage System. Leverage System is all about strategic thinking for entrepreneurs, and today's talk is about understanding branding systems for entrepreneurs. So, the first and most obvious question is, what is a branding system? What is a brand, and why is it important to me? So, a brand, I think people instinctively understand is, well, it's pretty much everything. It's the sum of all parts. It's really amongst your most valuable, if not your most valuable asset. It's a thing that you want to nurture and build over a long time. It's a thing you want to plan for. It's a thing that you want to imbue with a lot of attributes and values that then shorthand what you're all about. So it's something, therefore, that you should understand pretty intimately, understand how you're managing it and what the role is in your business. But why understand a brand system? Now, I think the main reason is it's that forward-looking, future-looking, because obviously we get so busy with our day-to-day and we make quick decisions. We might make quick decisions about the way a web page looks or design or logo or how we write copy or whether something works for us or doesn't work for us or whether somebody is somebody we trust or a joint venture partner will work for us or any of those things. We also might look at something and think, oh, our logo's not big enough, or it is big enough, or should I use my name on Facebook? Should I use my page name? Well, all of these things are all those little niggles that we're feeling. Is there confusion? Am I creating confusion? Do I have too many products? Do I have too many programs? What would a new client coming to me, what would be their impression? Where would they start? How do I bring them into my fold? What is their process through and get to know me, and how do I build know, like, and trust? So these are all critical things for entrepreneurs, and the brand has a role to play in all of those things. And the reason I'm teaching you this is I had the great benefit of, the corporate career prior to being an entrepreneur myself. I started in the mid 2000s, and prior to that I was working in one of Australia's leading advertising agencies and getting paid an awful lot of money to help very big brands with just these problems. And it's a snapshot of what you're doing now, but it's also really important to consider where you want to go, because changing your brand is not something you can or should do overnight. So you probably need, if you decide that you need to update or contemporize or change things, it probably needs to be part of a greater plan. And so that's what I would like to help you with by providing the context to how bigger companies manage their brand systems. Alright, so brand systems are a continuum. Of course, we're going to talk about 4 different models under the continuum, but please be aware that there are blurred lines probably in between, and you can have arguments, and agencies do have arguments about where people are on the continuum. So we may have a branded house that's very strongly branded or down to here, or we may get brands that sit in between the strict definitions. But let's talk about what these are. Branded house is a single master brand, and these make quite low investments in sub-brands, product brands, and things like that. And they just use a name or numbers as the way they differentiate their products from the master brand. So customers are always driven here to the parent brand, and they're handed over probably at point of sale into a retail conversion model. But in general, you would be driven by price and to a parent brand. So the parent brand really is the driver of the purchase decision in a branded house. So I'm just going to give one example now, because there's going to be more, so don't fret if it's not coming together. But let's think about BMW and its cars and its everything that it stands for, is a branded house. So a strong endorser would be where there are parent brands and product names that may have almost equal weight in the way that you think about them, but generally the parent brand is still very strong, and the product names are generally fairly functional, so they may relate to an adjective, a thing, a feature, or a noun, so phone, iPhone. Obviously, Apple is a great example of a strong endorser brand. And here is where the parent brand endorses the purchase decision. So you're probably mostly drawn in a lot of ways to the parent brand, and then underneath that you're going to go into the category via the parent brand. So sub-brands is a bit more of a dual branding model. This is probably when both the master brand, the parent brand, and the sub-brand name have weight in a purchase decision, and probably it starts to fall across now to the sub-brand, and sub-brands are named often differently to endorsement models. Sub-brands have a life and personality of their own. They're often used in a segmentation strategy to maybe appeal to a different gender or a different age. And the parent brand brings a set of attributes, a set of common attributes to the table. So let's think about Toyota here. So Toyota brings to me an accessibility and a certain price point and a certain level of quality, reliability, a big distribution network. So Toyota brings a lot to the table there, but all the life and energy is imbued into the sub-brands. So Corolla, Camry, not much energy there, but Camry, etc. So the sub-brand probably drives the purchase decision. Now, one way you can think about this, if you're looking at a car ad, it will have, the big ad, all the personality, driving this for the Corolla, and then down in the corner at some sort of size would be the parent brand Toyota. Now, in House of Brands, the actual manufacturer or the corporate parent is generally completely hidden. And again, now we're back to a single brand name, so there's no relationship between the parent brand and the sub-brand. So best known is Unilever, and of course all their brands are all through the supermarket, Omo, Rexona, Dove, etc., etc. So they are single brands. In fact, they run, then some of them run endorsement and branded houses under those brands, but Unilever, who manufactures them, is completely hidden. So they're almost just a corporation, and a corporation with no particular values, and they play no real part in the buying decision. So they're really used for distribution strength and manufacturing strength, and all through the chain, rather than having any kind of role in the marketing. Okay, so hopefully that's relatively clear. So let's look a little bit deeper. So brand values and attributes in a branded house are obviously all completely 100% invested in the parent. The design, the way a brand looks, everything, its properties are very consistent across the products, and the way the products are named might be letters, numbers, words, etc. Category words. So the BMW 3 Series 318i or whatever it's called. In an endorsement model, the brand values are invested in the parent as well, because the way the product is named is generally just categoric, generic, or it's so as I said, iPhone is an example. It's so a very simple product naming. So Swiss Vitamins is another strong endorser kind of brand. So their products are named mood or sleep, or so it's sort of, you're buying the benefit rather than naturo sleep or whatever you want to do that would be an associative. There's a new word I've introduced there, which is a word that relates to product naming. So there's obviously more generic ways of naming products, which is what I've been discussing, letters, numbers, categoric kind of words, even simple adjectives, fast, big, even excellent, quality words, things like that. Or then there's a way of naming things that are associative with maybe myth or legend, or So a good example might be the Samsung Galaxy Tab. So the word galaxy has all kinds of connotations and associations with exploration and space, and it's large and it's modern and it's out there. So, they're using an associative word to enhance the likelihood of that brand being noticed and rated and reviewed. In an endorser brand, because the parent has so much value, that's not always necessary. So, sub-brands. So, we have a set of brand values and a set of attributes that are known, but the sub-brands have their own personalities. Sometimes there's quite a connected look and feel, sometimes there isn't, and sometimes it is to some degree or another. Generally there is a parent brand sort of logo or well known. So in Toyota's case, they have the Jump. They have that brand property that they use extensively. And the product naming is generally associative, or sometimes it can be just completely free range out there when they make up a word. But one example of Toyota is, because Toyota, the strong brand values was reliability and a very reasonable price, and if I look at Toyotas, I think I can afford those. When they went to enter the luxury market, of course they had to create the Lexus brand, because Toyota could not stretch up high enough to carry a luxury brand. And Lexus, of course, is a much more branded house than Toyota. So again, just all branded houses tend to, in the sort of upscale luxury markets, exist much more. Now, house of brands, there's brand values are only invested in the public brand. What I mean by that is the brand that you see on the shelves or see for sale. There's no similar design references. There's nothing that sort of connects the brands at all, and all the product names are standalone words. Rexona, Dove. Dove's an associative word, obviously, but Rexona would have been made up at some stage. Omo would have been made up at some stage. And product naming is quite difficult. If you work in a corporation, you would know that. But yeah, that's how the different systems work. So here's a little example. So this is myself and my brothers and sisters, the House of Richards. So in the branded house, it's Richards C, Richards P, and Richards J. In a strong endorser model, Richards Kate. So suddenly Kate exists. Kate may have some values that is slightly different to Richards, Philippa, and Jono. As sub-brands, we are Kate by Richards, Philippa by Richards, Jono by Richards. So suddenly, what does Richards mean from over here? What does Richards bring to the table here? And what does the Kate bring to a table here? So they probably come and buy the Kate, but because she's by Richards and there's other Richards, and we know something about those Richards, we know something about what they value in life and their integrity, that's something worth looking at. In a house of brands, there's no Richards at all. There's just the first names, and there's no connection between those two. There's no synergy between them. There's no way to leverage them in any way. Alright, so here's some examples. Branded house, BMW, Facebook, just a massive parent mono brand. They just seem to have no interest in having different variations under Facebook. Tiffany, the properties, the blue box, the beautiful designs. Yes, very strong branded house. Apple, okay, strong endorser. Probably leans to being a branded house more and more, I would say. Very, very strong on the brand properties, the packaging and the design. And so providing a very consistent experience throughout. I think probably the iPod probably changed Apple a little bit, because it was probably and of course the Mac and the Macintosh was originally a sub-brand model, and I think as time has gone on, great products like the iPod and the Macintosh have enhanced the actual Apple brand to the point where now, that is the strong endorser. So they've got, they're able to invest in the Apple Store and all the Apple experience, so it becomes well understood. So Nike's another strong endorser. Samsung, would have started very much as a sub-brand model. It's a Korean brand, would have even 10 years ago perceived to be fairly low value. So they've done an enormous amount of work to build up the Samsung brand, and one of the ways they do that is by creating great products and great sub-brands. Interestingly, a lot of brands move to the left over time, and but Samsung, because it's got the Galaxy Tab and things like that, it's still probably in the middle, but I would say moving left. Likewise, Microsoft probably moving left as well. Windows and etc., all the different software brands, and it's still sort of, it's a Microsoft product, it's Microsoft software, etc. Same argument could be launched that it's probably got sub-brands, but I would say it's moving that way, probably leaning towards still a sub-brand model. Toyota, very much a sub-brand model. McDonald's, Kellogg's, you buy Nutrigrain, you buy Special K, does have some strong brand properties. The logo, the brand name will always appear on all the packets to some degree or another. They use the K a lot. McDonald's uses its colours a lot, and also creates things like that drives sales, like the Angus burger, and so does invest in its sub-brands as well. And of course, House of Brands we've talked about. I think that one's probably fairly clear. I guess the thing with the House of Brands is that you're not getting any benefits from one to the other. So one of the reasons companies probably like to move left is just because their marketing investment, they get more bang for buck if they're just building the parent brand. So particularly if you sponsor large properties, things like that, you probably do much better as a branded house or a strong endorser in those kind of models. Now, brand hierarchy is much harder for entrepreneurs, and of course, why is that? It's because of your name, your personal brand, which of course in the social media world, in our current environment, is becoming more and more important. People know you by name, they know what you do. So your name is actually becoming your endorser brand, and a lot of your brands are becoming essentially product brands or sub-brands, probably endorsed by you. Now this is fine. There's no answers here really. There's just bringing awareness to this as an issue and understanding what it is that you're doing if you're building your name versus building your, investing more and more energy into your brands. And also creating a parent brand potentially that is not your name, that you can still sit all the rest of your offer underneath that, but that parent brand is different. So it's probably easier to build an enduring brand and put the values into that brand if it's your own authentic voice. And in some ways, people that are using their own names are less limited by people that have chosen a brand name. So I'll give you an example. You might have chosen a brand name that has the word women in it if you're a female entrepreneur, and then you might grow and discover actually you do want to appeal to men, but maybe the fact that you've got the word women in it, or a channel, or your brand relates to a how-to, or it just becomes limiting for you. You just outgrow it. So then, falling back on your name is a good thing because you can't outgrow yourself. You can't outgrow your own name. You can grow with your name, and your audience can allow you to grow with your name. The cons, of course, is that, and this is really critical, to at least understand, you may or may not decide this is a problem, but it's critical to understand, is that if you invest everything in your name, that's your entire brand equity, which means that your business probably has no value outside of yourself. Potentially you could still sell programs and your mailing list or things like that, but without you driving that business, the business doesn't have value. Now, that may be true. Maybe there's just no way for your business, there would be no way your business could do the sort of money and growth that it's doing without you there. And that can be true, and probably if that's the case, it's not sellable anyway. So in which case, go for it. Build a personal brand. Build a really strong personal brand. But if you have in mind at any point to sell off your business or parts of your business, or look for a partner that did all the work, or somehow hide and expect that the business would do the same level of sales and revenue, that is really something you need to think about, is where you're investing your energy and where you're building your brand. Now, let's think about Richard Branson for a minute, because he's kind of indivisible from Virgin, but actually he's an endorser, because Virgin took on some of his personal attributes, his great joie de vivre, his great larrikinism and humour, and his, taking on the big boys and all of those kind of things. They live in the Virgin brand. But the Virgin brand lives on very much without Richard Branson now, because I think it's, very long standing, very well understood, very resonates really strongly with other people. So people understand that, and they, without him, he's probably not, doesn't really have his hands on the reins day to day anymore. He's more of a PR figurehead. So, obviously the shareholders would understand that if there was no more Richard Branson, there would still be a Virgin. So, he's an interesting person to think about. And I just wanted to show the two models that I see. The first is the brand name. Is the endorser name, is the sort of master brand. So alibrown.com, this is alibrown.com, this is panachdesai.com. So using your name as, the complete driver of choice. And, obviously this is a very simple model to run now in the world of social media, etc., etc. And you get your name known, drive everyone to you.com. And then once you're there, all kinds of things that, obviously Ali has lots of sub-brands, her different programs are all named, so, but, she's a strong endorser. Or, here's an example, Cynthia Kersey's Unstoppable. She owns that word, unstoppable. She owns it across different platforms, and she writes books, and she uses, and it's a great strong brand name, because it has such a strong sense of power and feminine. She's a feminine brand, but obviously that could work with males as well. It's not so oriented just to women. It's just oriented to power. Healing with the Masters, the massive spiritual community led by Jennifer McLean. Up to 400,000 people, I believe, in her community. So, it's just a phenomenal business that she's built up. And, she uses her name, she uses her corporate sort of name as it's just kind of a sub-brand model, I guess. But, she's very much, building these brands so that they have value in and of themselves, and probably don't completely depend on her to survive. So, look, there's no answers, there's only questions at this stage. There's only sort of keep an eye out, look at what people are doing, think about what would work for you, think about the pros and cons of going in different directions. Obviously the business equity one is a big one, but clearly a lot of people have decided that it's easier and faster to build a business off your own name, and you're not limited that way, and you can run all your other programs as sub-brands underneath, and that's quite an effective way to do it. So that's some food for thought, and I've really enjoyed bringing this to you, so I hope you've learned plenty from it. Thank you.